Critic, and welcome back. We are continuing our quick pop in to take a recap of the NFL as the NFL draft is ever approaching. And I am aware that I might not make it before the deadline, but don't worry, I still will make these videos until the end of the draft because then I will do a deep dive into all 32 teams' draft picks and give one of billions of other people's opinions on something that I am not qualified to do, but because I have an opinion, I can. So we're going to take a look into the AFC South, and as I said in my last video, we're going to start with the Indianapolis Colts, a team that I wonder, I really wonder, are they better with Minshew than they were with their draft pick Richardson? Interesting. So, the Indianapolis Colts, a team that I think with the drafting of Richardson, and the biggest thing I keep hearing about him was his rawness. That even when he was in Florida, he wasn't really praised as another great Florida quarterback, which is funny because I feel like Kyle Trask was more viewed as a, representative Florida quarterback, and he has not played a single snap in the NFL as a starter. And to the point right now that as the time of recording, he is, Baker Mayfield's not with Tampa, so he ain't gonna get a chance, and I don't know the Bucs are gonna release him. But Richardson comes in and he gets started right away. But he is now being viewed. He had the injury. He's athletic, and I know the offensive minded was because they were thinking what happened with Jalen Hurts did in Philadelphia. That's why Richardson was drafted to utilize his athleticism. But then he got hurt, season ending, and then we all thought the season was lost. But then the Colts towards the end, they were making a strong argument that they could potentially win the division, and they were so close with Gardner Minshew and all the injuries. They still had a 9-win season, and you just can't help but feel like, could they have won 9 games with Richardson at quarterback, or could they have won more, or, and sadly, could they have lost more? To the point that this Indianapolis Colts team, Minshew is gone, which, rightfully so. He went to, I guess, to do better things besides being with the Colts. But still, it just feels that you were so good with Richardson, with Minshew. Why would you? He's in the Raiders, so we probably had a better chance to start than most. Because who knows what the Raiders are going to do with their quarterback situation. I doubt they're going to keep their quarterback at play. Might be more run-oriented, but then Jacob's gone. Anyway, that's the Raiders conversation for another time. So could they have done more? Could they have done less? Could they have done the same? We don't know. But to me, I feel like the Colts surpassed expectations with the worst-case scenario. I don't think anyone thought the Colts were going to do anything anyway with Richardson. But the way they did, is it more of the AFC South just being as it is, or that Jaguars collapse? Because the Jaguars collapse really opened the gateway for the Texans and the Colts potentially take the division by force. But it didn't happen, and the Colts went on to go 9-8. They missed it at the very end. There are some games probably in the season that we probably can look into going, probably should have won that game. Yeah, they had a 1-point loss to the Browns earlier in the season. That probably could have, put them in. Yeah. That was one of the big ones. There were 6-point losses, but then some of them were 17-point losses, and one was 9-point losses. So maybe not as cut and dry, but definitely there was one game in there that probably could have steered in their favor. So with Richardson gone, I think we need to look into their best game, and their best game, in my humble opinion, the game that made me feel, okay. There was Week 12 versus Tampa Bay. Now, that was a game I honestly felt that both teams come in with momentum. Both teams come in with quarterbacks they probably didn't expect to be, relevant this time. The Colts, had the better record. The Colts got 500. They were the home team. It just felt like it, and their defense showed out. Jonathan Taylor, found some footing back in his position with the Colts. This was, to me, probably their best game in that the level of competition was there. Yes, Tampa was 4-7, had a losing record at the time, but where the Bucks went on eventually become the one the division, won a playoff game, gave Detroit, a slight hiccup of fear. And now the Bucks are hell. The Bucks are probably figure to be in much a better position in their respective division than the Colts are, and the Colts is getting their first round draft pick quarterback back. That's funny to me, but then again, you have C.J. Stroud, the Texans, which we didn't really think was going to be that big of a bump in the first year, which we'll talk about when we talk about the Texans. So the Tampa game is my favorite because I feel like it was a moment where it's like, okay, you guys are just been tiddling at that 500 mark for a while. This needs to be the game where you guys get over the hump, and then you guys did, and we all felt a little bit like, okay. Now later down the road, he did lose to the Bengals and he did lose to the Falcons, and of course the Houston at the end. But at this time, I felt like, I think the Colts defense is underappreciated. This showed the defense by sacking Baker Mayfield, forcing turnovers. Yes, Gardner Minshew did have a bad interception in that game, but still, it just felt like this feels like the Colts, the trick plays, the aggressiveness. This felt like this is the Colts' identity, and it felt like the Colts were having fun because they're showcasing, I don't know, that maybe because Tampa's a loser, they thought that, worst comes to now, we lose again, but they were just teetering at 500, and this is the game that finally gets them over the hump and gets them into at least a winning record. And then they won against the Tennessee Titans the next week. So to me, it felt like this was the game that felt like, okay, are we going to go to the playoffs? If we're going to fight for a playoff spot, we're just going to fight for draft positions, okay? We can't do both, guys. And also the Jaguars collapse helped them a lot too. Going to their worst game was sadly Week 16 against Atlanta. I'll be honest with you, that was probably one of the surest games of the weekend because I felt like Atlanta, with their quarterback situation, who was their quarterback in that game for the Falcons? Tyler Heineke was their quarterback in that game. And I just felt, yes, the Falcons defense, but I didn't expect it to be, the game was 90% field goals. In the second quarter, it was Koo had a field goal, 23 yards, 47-yard field goal. Then in the fourth quarter, he had 3 more field goals, 41, 35, and 25. The Colts lost by a bunch of small slashes by the Falcons. Hell, Bijan Robinson didn't have 100 yards rushing. Then he had 12 carries, 72 yards. So you can't say that Bijan Robinson beat us, even though he also was the leading receiver for the Falcons with 7 catches for 50 yards. And you lost by field goals. It just felt like, man, guys, just what happened to that momentum you guys had? And Falcon felt like a prime team, just like, the Falcons were probably just wounded enough to think we can just take them out, end this, and get ourselves, back on track to win this division, take it away from the grasp of the very hungry and very fast approaching Houston Texans. And you didn't, and the score is misleading, 29-10. That feels a little bit like, wow, you guys gave a lot of touchdowns. No, you only had 1 touchdown you gave up on the air for most of the game, and then in the third quarter you got another one, but it wasn't like you gave up 4 touchdowns in the game and a 2-point conversion. It was literally just touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal. So it felt like a game I should have won, and the score made it look like you guys got blown out when really you were just messing up. You're just not taking advantage of opportunities. But also credit to the Falcon defense, that's considered one of the better defenses of last year, even though the offense does not help it. This is probably one of the first games that made the Falcons look better than they did all season than it did the Colts. So that is your worst game. Your MVP for the Indianapolis Colts, I am going to give it to Gardner Minshew. Yes, I'm giving it to the Gardner because, just look at it and big picture here. He was a backup quarterback, probably meant there to mentor Richardson out of Florida. Richardson got hurt very early in his career, probably not even to a point for you to consider where was he trending in a good or bad direction. We don't know where he was trending. He was still treading water. And then he comes in, and you probably think he's just going to keep the Colts afloat. we're probably not going to do anything. We're probably going to look at a top 10 pick. What then, in hindsight, might be good. There's some good draft pick coming in. Maybe get him an offensive lineman. Maybe get him a receiver, new toy. Marvin Harrison, campaign that can outstart. But Gardner just kept the Colts afloat, and the Colts never quit on themselves. And Gardner Minshew is the focal point. Yes, Pittman played his part and Taylor did his role, but to me, Gardner Minshew was the guy being the captain of the ship that he probably didn't expect to be a captain, let alone anymore. And with this campaign of Gardner, it led to his potential resurgence in his career, and he could potentially be a starter for the Raiders down the road. So Gardner Minshew is my MVP. Now we let's just take a quick little deep dive into the Colts stat pool. It's not gonna leap out to you. Gardner Minshew just had 3,300 yards. He had 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I'm gonna call that as backup quarterback stats. He's not. I mean, if he would have put over 25 touchdowns, I mean, he still kept the interception down to the single digits, which that's still very, very good in my opinion. He played in 17 games, so it's not like he was, out of the whole whole season. Pardon me. So, yeah. So I feel like he's your MVP. He kept the team afloat. Jonathan Taylor, who played in 10 games, he had 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was effective, but it was really just Gardner keeping the team alive and nearly put him in the play. What happened if Gardner Minshew took the Colts to the playoffs? Win or lose, would Gardner still have been let go? Or would the Colts have brought him back? Or would his price tag been even higher if the Colts couldn't bring him back? And then the Raiders would have probably had to pay him more to get him. Possibly. I mean, with the NFL, with all these starting quarterbacks getting hurt, even for 2 or 3 games getting hurt, you probably need a good value at a backup quarterback. At least you pull what Gardner did. Just keep your team afloat. And in some situation, hopefully your starter comes back. But in some cases, could he not just... Because the Colts could have just been like, well, the season's done. Done. Could have been done. Just well, we tried. Let's not try to get too hurt. But they didn't, and they played. And that's why Gardner's my MVP. The grade I'm going to give the Colts... I'm giving them a B. I can't give them an A because like I said, the Cleveland game, the Falcon game, even the last game against the Colts, it just felt like just needed one win. Just one win somewhere this season. Just one more win, you would have secured the playoffs. And yes, he would have been the Texans, he probably would have had that chance there too. But it just felt like with Richard getting hurt, it should have been like, that's it, done. But you guys were still in the conversation till the last week. I have to give you a B. I can't give... If you would have made the playoffs or won the division, I would have given them an A. Because they have went beyond expectations. If you lose your starting quarterback in the first quarter of the season and you make the playoffs, that to me is good coaching, good players, good strategy. Maybe an easy schedule if you want to, be that cynical. But it shows to me that the players and the coaches didn't quit. So B. It's a B. To me, it's a good B. They did a good job for the circumstances, but one more win would have got you over the hump and got you into the playoffs. Yeah, it's frustrating. So that's the Colts. Going down the line, we're gonna check into our fellow teams. So we did the Colts. Let's do the next team that also didn't make the play. Let's go with the Tennessee Titans, as they will be our next team, taking a quick deep dive into the NFL. Until then, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you very much for watching.